You got to wait for a gapper.
That is fair. Down the right field line. Giambi on his way to third. And they're going to wave him around. The throw misses a cutoff man. Shot into the plate. Out of the plate. Derek Jeter with one of the most unbelievable plays you will ever see by a shortstop.
Live from Chatterbox Sports Studios, it's Off the Bench with Thom Brennaman.
Well, good morning, and good morning. Friday. Here we go on a big weekend. Hope y'all are doing well. This is Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. I'm Thom Brennaman, and we're very excited about lots going on this weekend. We come your way each and every day, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to noon. You can join us on YouTube/Chatterbox Sports, at Facebook/Chatterbox Sports. Is that somebody's computer barking over there?
Yeah,
You
hold
get to see
on.
it
Hold
properly?
on.
By the way, good morning, Casey McAllister, Paul Fritchner. Nice to have you here, my man.
Tom, great to see you.
You guys all right?
Happy Friday, Tom.
Happy Friday indeed.
Baseball playoffs start today.
We're going to get into all that today and lots more. We mentioned we're also at Facebook/Chatterbox Sports. Please subscribe, hit the notifications button, let you know when all our clips come out. I was just watching a little bit of our buddy Tracy Jones from yesterday. That is must-see TV. Every Tuesday and Thursday at 11:30. You got to check it out. On social media, we can be found on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at Thom Brennaman TV. That's Thom Brennaman TV. We're also available in podcast form. Many of you are enjoying our show via the podcast. Search Off the Bench with Thom Brennaman wherever you get your podcast, and I promise you it will be there. All right. Thursday night football. It may not have been football artistry, anything but. However, it was exciting. That's the thing about the NFL. So many games are being played right down to the end. Last night, the Colts go to Denver. They beat the Broncos in overtime, 12-9. So, not artistry in any way. Both quarterbacks throwing picks all over the place. In fact, Russell Wilson threw 2 second-half interceptions, one with 2 minutes to go, when Denver had a chance really to put the game away. The Broncos this year have played 3 home games. We've talked about the Bengals offense struggling at times this year. Think about this. Russell Wilson comes in, huge free agent signee, right? Huge contract. The Broncos have scored 2 touchdowns in their 3 home games. They slipped to 2-3, the Colts at 2-1. A little bit later on this morning, the Bengals will have their final tune-up before jumping on the Big Bird to Baltimore for Sunday night's game against the Ravens. Kickoff is set for 8 o'clock on NBC. Cincinnati is a 3-point underdog in this one. The over-under is set at 48.5. Elsewhere in the AFC North, Cleveland, who like the Bengals and the Ravens, stand at 2-2, will host the LA Chargers at 1 o'clock. Surprisingly, I think it's surprisingly, maybe you don't, the Browns are a 2.5-point underdog in that. We have our picks coming up later today, and we'll address all these games. The Steelers at 1-3 go to Buffalo. That's a 1 o'clock kick. The Bills are favored by 14 points. Rookie Kenny Pickett will get the start at quarterback for what we call the men of aluminum, not the men of steel. As we heard from Brian Billick on Monday, you got to run Pickett out there sooner or later. And Mike Tomlin says that time is now. A couple of other games of interest. The New York Giants go to Green Bay. Both teams are 3-1. Aaron Rodgers has been very disappointed the way the offense is played. In fact, he said the way they're winning is not sustainable. And the 3-1 Dallas Cowboys travel to the 2-2 LA Rams. Cooper Rush is a perfect 3-0 since taking over for Dak Prescott. The Rams looked awful against the 49ers. Matthew Stafford was sacked 7 times in that game. On the college front, homecoming weekend, big party weekend down there in Clifton. As the number 24 UC Bearcats host South Florida, UC a 27.5-point favorite. Kickoff 2:30. And again, like every game now, we'll talk with Dan Horde about this a little bit later on. Every game at Nippert sold out. Number 3, Ohio State, for the first time all year, goes on the road. Buckeyes travel to East Lansing for a matchup against one of the most disappointing teams in the country, Michigan State. The Buckeyes are absolutely rolling. This team is really good. Kickoff is set for 4. Ohio State, a 27-point favorite. That line should maybe be something closer to 40. Miami of Ohio hosts Kent State up in Oxford. Kentucky will be at home in Lexington against South Carolina. 2 other games outside our area to keep an eye on. Alabama and Texas A&M get together. The Aggies, it appears they've lost starting quarterback Max Johnson for the year with a hand injury. Bryce Young is questionable after injuring his shoulder last week. That's a game-time decision. Then you throw in all the comments back and forth. Nick Saban and Jimbo Fisher, they used to work together. But then Fisher calls him a narcissist during the offseason. They say they've patched it up. Saban says no hard feelings. But I would bet money, and I'm not a gambler, but if Saban can run it up on the Aggies, he will do so. And when the season began, if someone would have told you the game of the weekend would be Kansas and TCU, you'd have given somebody 10,000 to 1 odds for a hundo, and you would have lost. This is a huge game in the Big 12. The Horned Frogs routed Oklahoma last week. They put up 55 points on the Sooners. KU is 5-0 for the first time since 2009. College game day is going to Lawrence, Kansas, and it's not for a basketball game. Baseball. The Reds fired 5 coaches yesterday. That is called window dressing after a 100-loss season. The MLB playoffs, as Paul mentioned, they get underway today. These are best-of-3 series, and they start at noon up in Cleveland. The former Indians, now Guardians, will host Tampa Bay. The Cardinals this afternoon at home against Philadelphia. Seattle plays at 4 in Toronto. Interesting note there. Former Red Luis Castillo starts Game 1 for Seattle. It is his first what's the word I'm looking for? Postseason series start. Boy, fumbling around on a Friday. We were on a roll. Went straight south. Then you have tonight San Diego at the Mets. Yu Darvish this year in 2 starts has dominated the Mets. Will that continue tonight? And the great Max Scherzer is on the hill for the Mets. All right, fellas, we got a big show today. We got Paul Doherty coming up at 10:40. We have Dan Horde, the radio play-by-play voice of both the UC Bearcats and the Cincinnati Bengals, coming up at 11. We have our picks at 11:30. Paul, picks are your specialty. Since you're sitting in for Brandon today, are you going to be grading our picks?
I'll be helping out for sure. I'll be helping.
What does that mean?
Well,
I
was told that Brandon's calling in for some picks too. So, look, if we need some advice, Casey, if you're looking for some help, Tom, you and I were agreeing on a lot of the picks when you were going through them earlier this morning. So
we were.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing, Tom?
Look, how are you doing on your show, Not Too Picky, Mondays and Thursdays?
Yes.
How have you been doing on your picks?
We're doing pretty well.
I'm asking about you.
Yes, I've been doing pretty well. I have not gone back and totaled everything up, but we have not had a show go under 500 yet.
What do you mean you haven't totaled them up? Isn't that part of the show to find out how well you're doing? What are you guys doing?
Well, yeah, to a certain point it is. But, I mean, when we're giving out, we're 20, 30 picks a show, then you got to go back and you got to total everything up. So we're still sifting through all of that. But we have not had a show go under 500 on our picks yet.
And when you say we,
I close the show every show with football picks with Reed as well. And then Reed Mouse. And then we'll have our guest come on, and our guest will give a pick. Our YouTube chat will give a pick. Our YouTube chat's on a 4-pick winning streak, and our guests are on a 4-pick winning streak. We've only had one guest give a losing pick, and that was on the first show a month ago. So
it's pretty good.
We're rocking and rolling, Tom. We're making people money.
Now, look, speaking of making money, we hope we do at Chatterbox. But, we got a lot going on here. There's Paul's show. Brandon Sejo starts a mental health show in November. About all the high school football games. What's the big game tonight? Fairfield v. Lakota West?
Lakota West at Fairfield. Yep.
Yes. That's a big game. That'd be a great crowd for that game.
Yeah.
Lakota West, I think, is ranked 2nd or 3rd in the state.
Yeah.
Moeller number 1.
Moeller's number 1.
Yeah. Princeton's ranked 2, I think. Yeah. Elder, they might still be ranked, but, they got just bludgeoned by Moeller. Everybody's been bludgeoned by Moeller. What was I getting at here? Anyway, a
lot of things going on at Chatterbox.
So for those that don't know, tomorrow is our maiden voyage for what we call the Bearcat Bash. So for those of you that are familiar with the Clifton area and all of the building, they've done such a great job down there. The mainstay through it all is Short Vine, right? People my age, we used to go all the time to Bogarts, to concerts, stuff like that. They've got bars, restaurants, whole 9 yards. Trace Fowler, our CEO, has been working morning, noon, and night to get all the permits, the whole 9 yards. So now Short Vine tomorrow, right? Correct me if I'm wrong here, fellas, will be completely closed off. You can walk around and drink beer. We have beer right there at the tailgate. It's a game day show, game day-like show. We call it the Bearcat Bash. We've got a big stage. We've got our video replay boards. Kirk Herbstreit told me he has never been anywhere through all the years of College Game Day like the one they had at UC last year. And that's what we're trying to do here on Chatterbox for every home game moving forward starting tomorrow. Anything I'm missing there, I know that Brandon is hosting that show with Tony Pike. We have comedians that are coming in to do some stuff, right?
Yeah, a couple of Barstool guys will be there. We have some former UC players that are going to be there, and it's going to go all day. So even after the game, if you watch the game and you want to come over, the beer tents will be there all day until, I think, 10 o'clock at night.
And we're also giving away tickets. So you come early, and you might get a couple tickets to the game. So be ready to come, have a good time with us. And it's called the Bash.
Oh,
Legally,
it's called it the Bear. Okay, it's called the Bash.
The Bash.
Okay.
But
and the great thing about it is that because of the layout, Nippert stuck in the middle of the campus like it is with, buildings all around it, there aren't a lot of great tailgate places at UC like maybe some other places that, a little more spread out. This Short Vine is as good as it gets. You walk right down that little mini hill that drops you right down 2 blocks from walking in the door at Nippert. So the Bash starts at what time tomorrow?
I believe it starts at 10.
Okay, and goes till 10 at night.
10 at night.
Yep.
Wow, okay. And again, you're allowed to walk around like a lot of places are now. I can't remember what the acronym they're using.
Dora.
It's like a Dora, yeah.
Okay, you can walk around and drink a beer and hang out and have a lot of fun. It's supposed to be a beautiful fall day tomorrow, sellout crowd, homecoming weekend. We invite you to stop by the Bash. We're doing the same things at the Bengals game. Now, where are we with this whole thing? Because we did our first, tailgate down there at Longworth Hall.
Yep.
And then we did one prior to the Thursday night game against Miami a week and a half ago, right next to Moorlines.
Yes.
So where are we moving forward? Because I want everybody to know where you can come check us out, because Chatterbox is doing one of these. And we want you to be along for the ride.
Yeah, I believe that the plan is for us to be at Moorline for the rest of the time.
Really?
Now, yeah, I do believe so. Trace is still working out a deal with the Moorline owner, and he is very excited for us, wants to partner with us. So we're just working on that contract currently, and hopefully we can provide everyone a great time down by the banks. It'll be an awesome time.
You know, one thing I failed to mention, fellas, in the opening monologue today, and I want to thank Nathan, who is a regular viewer on YouTube. He reminds me, and I apologize for not bringing it up. Sunday, FC Cincinnati, right, Paul? This is a winner-take-all game at 2:30, right?
Yep. Yeah, had Tommy G, the voice of FC Cincinnati, had him on my show yesterday to preview what is decision day on Sunday. There's 9 scenarios for FC Cincinnati to get into the postseason. 8 of them involve FC Cincinnati being in. The only way FC does not get into the postseason is with a loss and then an Orlando draw in their match. So 8 of the 9 scenarios for a team that was so dismal last year and so terrible. FC's turned things around. If you've been down to TQL Stadium, it's been a fun season. The crowds have been great now as the team has gotten – I mean, they lost last weekend for the first time since July. So, yeah, things are looking good for FC Cincinnati right now. It would be pretty hard. I want to say it's impossible. We know that how some things have gone wrong in Cincinnati sports over the years. So I don't want to say it's impossible, but it would be very hard for FC to miss the postseason.
But the bottom line is they don't even have to worry about any other scenarios as long as they win.
If they win, they are in.
They win
yes.
the game. Right.
Yes.
That's all that matters.
If they win, they're in.
Win, and you're in.
Yep.
You know, we were talking about this a little bit yesterday and what the interest level is. Casey, a couple of days ago, we were talking about this, you and Brandon and me. And Paul, you're really dialed in. And Casey, I know you're a big fan of FC Cincinnati and follow it regularly. Are they still selling out or drawing big crowds for all those games?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what the official sellout number is,
Right.
but the crowds always this year, especially as the unbeaten streak went along, the crowds just continued to get better and better. And then at home last weekend against Chicago, it was probably one of their better crowds of the season, if not the best crowd of the season. And
I
it was
saw
a letdown.
where TQL Stadium won some international award.
Yeah, best football stadium in soccer. Best soccer stadium in the world, according to some to an outlet.
I mean,
yeah.
that's unbelievable.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I have not been in there yet. You obviously, you guys have both been in there.
Yeah.
I can't wait to get in there.
It has a very intimate feel to it. If anybody's listening that hasn't been down there either, it's very. No matter where you sit, you feel like you're right there on the action. I think that's one of the good things, and especially with the way that some of these newer NFL stadiums are being designed too, that the seating capacities are being restricted because more and more people are watching games at home. I think that's one of the big benefits and boons of the new age of sports viewership is that you have this more, like I said, intimate feel with the players because there's just not as many seats in the stadium. They would rather the stadiums be more crowded than wait for the postseason where you have this 50, 60, 70,000 seat stadium, but it's empty 2/3 of the season. Then it gets the postseason, it's full, but they'd rather the stadium be full the whole season. Sure. And the Bailey, everything else, it's been an exciting year for FC.
Well, I want to thank Nathan for pointing that out because that is certainly worth noting. Here in Cincinnati, and we wish FC Cincinnati the very, very best of luck. Are you guys now, Casey? I know you say you're new to baseball. I mean, are you guys going to watch the baseball playoffs?
Well, I know Paul will because he made an interesting bet, right?
Yeah, so yesterday on Not Too Picky, Reed Mouse and I, at the end of the show, I looked to him and I said, hey, look, guys, none of us have a team that we're invested in the postseason, right? The Reds aren't in the postseason. I'm from D.C. The Nationals aren't in the postseason. I worked with the Orioles last year. The Orioles aren't in the postseason. Reed's a Cubs fan. Cubs aren't in the postseason. So I said, we got to find somebody with decent enough odds, with a good enough shot to win in the postseason, and let's put a bet down and just call them our team for October. Reed somehow convinced me to settle on the Mets at plus 900.
It's a good bet.
I think with the pitching and with, you look at like Pete Alonso, you look at some of the lineup. I know that they haven't been as hot lately as they were early in the season. They just got swept by the Braves. They had that 10.5 game lead in the NL East. The Braves came charging strong. They win for the 5th straight year in the NL East. But at plus 900, we didn't want to just take obviously the Dodgers, the favorite, probably going to win it. could have just settled at that, but they were like plus 360 or something. We wanted a little more bang for our buck, so we settled on the Mets.
Well, I mean, look, the Mets have those two starters. If DeGrom stays healthy, he's maybe 2 or 3 more great years away if he does what he's always done, of being a future Hall of Famer. Scherzer undoubtedly is going to be in the Hall of Fame one day. Scherzer starts in Game 1, as we mentioned tonight. And, look, we talked about this with my dad the other day. There are 2 managers out there who, in my opinion, both are Hall of Fame managers. Dusty Baker with Houston, used to be with the Reds, of course, and Buck Showalter with the New York Mets. They are both great managers. They've taken multiple teams to the playoffs. They're they are old school type of managers. You're not going to see one of these games if Scherzer's in there with 110 pitches in the 7th and he's going after people. He's not getting taken out of the game because he's sitting at 110 pitches. Unlike Kevin Cash in the World Series a couple years ago, he's jerking a guy out of the game who's working on a shutout because he's at 100 pitches. That ain't happening with Buck Showalter and with Dusty Baker. Even though Scherzer and DeGrom have had their share of injuries, especially DeGrom, the first half of this year. But I think it would be a good story if those 2 teams wound up in the World Series.
Yeah.
Because I think for both of those guys, neither one has won the whole thing. And they've been great managers for a long time. I think it'd be a good storyline for the sport of baseball.
If you're betting on the game tonight, if you're looking, it's the primetime game, the Mets and the Padres. The Mets are the betting favorites, but the Mets have scored the most runs on average in the first inning this year. They score about 0.8 runs per game in the first inning. Yu Darvish, one of the worst first inning pitchers in baseball. So if you're looking at that nerfy bet, I would not take that tonight in the Padres and the Mets game. But the Mets at home, that it's kind of a weird setup now with this best of 3 wild card thing, Tom, where you get all 3 games potentially at home. If you have to go to the third, you get rewarded for being the higher seed.
That's the way it should be.
Yeah,
that's the way it should be. And then, on the American League side, you have Houston, the 1 seed, Yankees, a 2 seed.
Dusty.
National League side, you got, that's right, Dusty. You got, in the National League, Dodgers, number 1 seed, Atlanta, number 2 seed. So it will be fun to watch. I don't know how much of it I will actually sit down and watch, but the playoffs, at least to get your blood flowing a little bit, and sort of spark the fire a little for baseball now that they move into quote-unquote October. The Bengals, fellas.
Yeah.
I mean, Casey's been saying, if you haven't been with us, Casey's been saying all week long, it's a walk in the park. Walk in the park for the Bengalis in Baltimore.
Walk in the park is stretching it a little bit.
What you said yesterday.
I said that the Ravens' defense was miserable. That's what I said. And I think that the Ravens Bengals game this week will play out a lot like they did the first time they met up.
I want you to tell me what you're basing the Ravens' defense being terrible on beside a fourth quarter against Miami.
2. Last week against Buffalo.
No. Here's the point I'm making.
Okay.
At the end of the day, the Baltimore defense against the Buffalo offense gave up 20 points in the game until the final second of the game.
Yeah.
So they give up 23 to Buffalo. I think if you went to every team in the NFL who has to play Buffalo and you said, all right, here's the deal. Your defense is only going to allow Buffalo 23 points. I think 10 out of 10 say, I'll take that right now. Okay?
I would agree.
So the Ravens held Buffalo to 23 points. In their other 2 games, they shut down the Jets. That's not saying a lot. They shut down New England. That's, so-so. But it's 1 quarter. They held Miami to 14 points in 3 quarters. And that's when they laid an egg and everything blew up, and they blow that huge lead to the Dolphins. But, Casey, what are you basing that on?
Listen, I'm just going to read some stuff off to you, right?
Are you going to give me stats?
I'm going to give you a couple stats. Okay?
All right, go ahead.
In the second half, Baltimore has given up an NFL worst 1,019 yards.
Again, I would bet 300 of that was against Miami.
Okay.
Talk to me, Casey.
Even so, they allowed 67 points in the second half. This season, Baltimore defenders have no...
Let me jump in. I'm going to address each stat.
Yeah. Okay.
How many points?
67
All right,
points.
67. They allowed 28 of the 67 in the fourth quarter against Miami. Yeah. So now you start chopping down some of these numbers now and take out the one outlier, that quarter.
They gave up 17
that means you're in the
Buffalo.
40s in 3 other games in the second half. Total.
They gave up 17 against Buffalo.
I understand that. But again, I think everybody would say if you allowed Buffalo 17 points after giving up 6 in the first half, I think everybody would. But please, you have the stage.
Okay,
Go ahead.
Okay. The Ravens defense in the fourth quarter is giving opposing quarterbacks the best QBR rating at 88.6 and allowing 5 touchdowns and only getting 2 sacks in the fourth quarter. They've only had 2 sacks in the fourth quarter. So pretty much what I'm saying is the Ravens are inconsistent with how they start the game, right?
Yes.
Which is exactly the perfect formula for the Bengals. They usually start slow, which
is right on Zach Taylor. Go ahead.
Yeah, right on Zach Taylor. But they come out in the second half with the adjustments, with the improvements that they need to do in order to be successful later on in the second half. And the Ravens are just a terrible second half team. It just makes sense that what's going to happen.
That is a strong word, terrible second half team.
They are, according to the numbers right now.
You know, now I'm not into the whole metrics thing and the whole analytics thing, but we like to point out, Andrew, one of our regulars following us on YouTube, says the Ravens are 30th in DVOA. Would anybody care to explain what DVOA is?
I know it's a metric based off of like per play, like how well they do per play.
Okay. It's basically how you do per play against the league average.
Okay. Well, they're 30th. Andrew points out.
It's one of the more well-regarded defensive, as you would say, like sabermetrics in football.
Yeah, and
comparisons.
One of the worst.
Okay. You try to learn something every day here. Look. For me, it's the eye test. And again, you take away the fourth quarter against Miami, where the Ravens gave up 28 points, blew a 35-14 lead, which is almost impossible to do, but they did to Miami.
Wouldn't that be an argument for the Bengals?
You give up 17 points against Buffalo in the second half. I mean,
to me, those are both.
It's not bad.
Those are both arguments for the Bengals, not against or not for the Ravens. Those are like, why are they giving up that many points to Miami?
Okay, but here's my question. Yeah, and you're correct. I mean, you're correct. But here's the thing. Do you want to take your chances, as you pointed out earlier? The Bengals have been notoriously poor starters in the first half of games during the Zach Taylor era. They look a lot of games like they're not ready to play. Now, these last 2 weeks on offense, they've changed it up where they won the toss, they take the ball, they go down the field on the opening drive, they score a touchdown. So, maybe it's starting to turn a little bit. You hope so. But I tell you one thing I wouldn't want is to take my chances of falling behind Baltimore in the first half by a decent-sized number and banking on all of a sudden you're going to come back and win the game late.
Oh, no, I agree with that. That's why I'm saying it's going to be a lot like last season's first matchup, where it was like 13-14 going into the half. I mean, it was close. This game's going to be close in the first half. And then when the second half comes around, you're going to start seeing the league grow more in the Bengals' favor. That's just what happened last year. It's nothing against the Ravens. I just feel like we match up very well against them. And
Bengals love prime time. Bengals love prime time, Tom.
After years and years where they couldn't buy a prime time win.
I always felt so bad for Marvin when we had to roll the ball out there, and it was just another primetime loss. Do you remember that one years ago against the Patriots way, way, way back when? I think it was Monday Night Football.
No.
And the Patriots roll into town, and it's just this was probably back in the mid-2000s. And it's just a classic Marvin Lewis primetime beatdown. Tough.
Yeah.
But here, you have to be at the bottom to get to the top. And I don't know if the Bengals are at the top, but at least in the prime time, it's not a miserable watching experience anymore.
Well, it's not. It's not. And look, they've played much better. You know, I always felt terrible. I mean, there was a part of me that felt terrible. I'm not going to lie about this. I always felt terrible for Andy Dalton in the big game. Never won a playoff game. Prime time seemed like, stuff just melted down immediately in most of those games because he seems like such a good man.
He does.
And he won a lot of games in this town at quarterback. I think his first 5 years in the league, him and Flacco come in the same time. Both of them take their teams to the playoffs 5 straight years, right out of the gate. I mean, there was a lot to like about Andy Dalton, but man, when they'd show up in those primetime games or in postseason games, it was embarrassing.
Yeah, it was tough to watch. But the Ravens are a good primetime team, too. I don't want to take anything away from them.
Both you guys are beating down the Ravens.
Andrew's making a lot of good statements here in the chat. Just with the eye test alone, he gave up – the Ravens defense gave up 300 yards to Joe Flacco and Mac Jones. That's – good point. But also, at the same time, Ravens are 14-1 in the last 15 primetime home games. But they've lost the last 5 home games straight. So something may or may not give there on that. And just like you said, they're really good in primetime. So I don't know, man. I just have a good feeling about this, that it's going to be a lot like last year. And I think that was like week 6 or something like that, where they just come out back and forth. Pretty good ball game up until like the fourth quarter, where the Bengals are able to play on both sides of the football on offense. They're going to be able to run the football and throw the football.
As long as it's not what we watched last night, that's all I care about.
Yeah, agreed.
Although last night's game, hold on a second. I want to say something real quick about last night's game.
Please do.
Last night's Thursday night football game. And I know all of you that watched last night, we all did it. We all held hands. We all suffered through last night's game together. Yep. Last night's game was one of those games, Tom, where it's so bad in the beginning that you just want to rip your eyes out. But then eventually, it's like when you tell a bad joke, right? And you just keep telling the bad joke over and over and over and over again to the point where it becomes a shtick and an inside joke. And then eventually you ride that roller coaster back up to the top and it's kind of funny again.
Right.
That's what happened last night, where I tweeted with whatever it was, 3 or 4 minutes left in overtime, when the Broncos were right on the goal line and it was 4th and 1, and you're saying to yourself, are they going to kick the field goal here? Or are they going to go for it on 4th down? And then, of course, they passed the ball with Russell Wilson on 4th and 1.
Yep.
You got to kick that field goal and just end it in a tie and just give us all what we were rewarded for watching, which was a tie of a football game last night that for some reason the Colts won. That was 2 teams that deserved a tie in a terrible football game, which Broncos fans left before overtime started. I don't know if you saw that.
Well, I did.
They
were
tired of watching out. Can you blame them?
No, I mean, they're tired of watching what's going on. I mentioned in the monologue there, they've played 3 home games, and it's a phenomenal football town, Denver. I mean, unbelievable football town. They've scored 2 touchdowns total on offense in the 3 games at home so far this year, and they had such high hopes. We said on this program, when all the odds came out, that Denver and the LA Chargers both had better odds to win the AFC Championship than the Bengals. We said it was a complete farce. And so far, that is 100% accurate. Total farce. Okay, we got Paul Daugherty coming up right after the break. Going to talk about, the Reds getting rid of all these coaches, and we're going to talk about the Bengals a little bit. So stick around for that. This is Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers.
At United Dairy Farmers, we've perfected freshness in our family bakery, where we use only the finest ingredients, like thick, high-quality glazes on our signature donuts, before delivering them fresh from bakery to store every day. UDF, made for you.
If your AC or furnace is struggling, turn to the experts at Bartell's Heating and Cooling. Their certified technicians get the job done right the first time, and if you need a new unit, Bartell's will give you upfront pricing with no hidden fees. Plus, ask about Bartell's 0% interest financing for 60 months. Learn more at bartellsheatingandcooling.com. Bartell's Heating and Cooling, for a comfortable way of life. Eli's Sports Bar and Grill, proudly sponsoring high school football with 3 locations in Mason, Liberty Township, and Ross, Ohio. Our 10-foot screens guarantee a great view from every seat in the house. Eli's Sports Bar and Grill, the best place in Cincinnati for sports, food, and fun.
Where can you turn when you're in pain? Turn where more high school, college, and pro athletes turn. Where your neighbors and weekend warriors turn. Turn to Beacon Orthopedics and Sports Medicine and get superior care on your schedule. That's the Beacon difference.
Check out our fresh arrivals at Jake Swinney Used Cars. Over 250 used vehicles weekly. All makes, all models. From economy to luxury, Jake Swinney, the original used car superstore.
I know one thing, ain't nobody does this better than us. Facts.
All right, welcome back to Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. We're joined a couple of times a week, gratefully so, to be joined as it's made the comeback since his retirement. TheMorningLine.substack.com, the author, legendary sports columnist here in Cincinnati for over 35 years, Paul Doherty. Doc, you got the lid going this morning. TML, The Morning Line. I mean, now you got your merchandise going.
You got to promote the product, right?
Hey, you better believe it. You better believe it. Hey, I want to ask you a little bit about, first of all, welcome back from your little getaway. I know you were writing about it in The Morning Line. I read it the other day, yeah. TheMorningLine.substack.com. You had great weather. You went up to Michigan, and it sounds like you had a wonderful time.
Never been to the peninsula, lower or upper. We went to the lower peninsula, an area close to Traverse City. Fabulous, Tom. If you've never been there, I recommend it. The only drawback is it's so far away. It was 7.5 hours, and you're barely scratching the surface by the time you get to Traverse City. But the weather was great. The views were fantastic. Highly recommend it.
I mean, you even drew an analogy to Cape Cod.
Yeah, Saugatuck, which is a little town up on the way up there. It looked a lot like Cape Cod, and I spent a lot of time there when I was a kid. And again, I took my kids to Cape Cod, so I know what each looks like. And yeah, it looks a lot like that, except not as crowded.
Yeah, oh, of course, yeah. I want to start with the Reds. I mentioned a little while ago, and another one of your Morning Line columns talked about your love and just pure enjoyment of the game of baseball. I think, to quote, what you had in your column about, and you've referenced this many times, sitting out on the back porch, having a cold beer, having a cigar, listening to baseball on radio. I don't know how many people besides you and a handful of others are still doing that kind of thing, to be honest with you, but I know there are some out there. What are your overall thoughts about where the Reds are and what they do now?
Boy, Tom, how much time do you have?
Well, we got plenty.
I think they have locked their fans into one of two positions. They're not going to spend a lot of money, period. End of story. So if you're a fan, you either do what they ask you to do, which is have patience, let the rebuild progress as we hope it will, or you stop being an invested fan. That's it. Either you say, I love this team so much that I'm willing to be patient because I don't have a choice, or I in fact do have a choice, and that is to not to follow them, at least with your heart. Do what I suggested that I've done with the Pirates, who I love for 55 years of my 64 years on the planet, but dropped them. When the Pirates traded three really good kids, Tyler Glasnow, Austin Meadows, and Shane Baz, to Tampa Bay about 3 years ago for a pitcher named Chris Archer, I'd had it. That was it for me. And I literally stopped following them that day and have never looked back. And my experience, as I wrote the other day, my experience with baseball has benefited from not being mad all the time about the Pirates. So that's an option if you're a Reds fan. If, on the other hand, you love this team and have always loved it, grew up and loving them and so on and so forth, stay with them. But stay with them knowing that you're going to see a lot more pain for at least another year before things have a chance to turn around.
It wasn't even 48 hours after the Reds lose their 100th game of the season, only the second time in the history of the franchise. That's over 140 years of baseball where the team lost 100 games or more in a season. And the general manager, who we've talked about on this show, Nick Kroll, who I think across the board most people feel, if given the chance, would do a very good job as a Major League Baseball general manager. He gets high praise from a lot of people outside of the Cincinnati Reds organization. Now, what he can and can't do, look, his hands can be tied by budgets just like the rest of us. But he comes right out and basically says, it was humiliating, it's embarrassing we lose 100, but next year we're not going to change much as far as our payroll is concerned and the direction of the franchise is concerned about trying to be much better. Is that a good message right out of the gate a couple of days after playing offense, a good offense? The best defense is a good offense?
Well, it's the only message. It's the only message. If you're going to go full bore into the rebuild, which they have done ever since the All-Star break, kind of made it official, then yeah. The fans here are smart, Tom. They're you can't BS a fan base like the Reds fan base. If you intend to do the rebuild completely, then do it. It's better, hopefully for Reds fans in the long run, to do it this way than the way they've tried to do it in the past, which was piecemeal it, which obviously hadn't worked. So sure, if this is what you're doing, be upfront about it and stick to it.
I always find it curious when coaches get fired. And look, I had a chance to broadcast Major League Baseball games for 33 years. And we've all seen it. Doesn't matter what franchise you follow or don't follow. You have a season like the Reds had, you blow out nearly the entire coaching staff. Even some guys that are behind-the-scenes guys have been blown out in the last 48 hours, and I don't mean to say that in a tongue-in-cheek way. I'm sorry when anybody loses their job. Those jobs are very important to those guys and their families. But, in the Reds' case, Derek Johnson, who is coming back as pitching coach, they basically have given him carte blanche to establish his pitching philosophy. It starts at the major league level, and then it trickles all the way down to the very lowest levels of the minor leagues, down to rookie ball. From an offensive standpoint, Alan Zinter is gone on the heels of just a couple of years ago firing a hitting coach. And I know you've talked about it. I wonder what their direction is from an offensive standpoint now moving forward.
Well, I'm not smart enough to tell anybody whether those guys deserve to be fired or retained or whatever. I simply don't know. I mean, you can look at the numbers and see that they're not that great, but you can look at the injuries too, and they played a part. My concern is that whoever they hire, Tom, will be their fourth hitting coach in 5 years. They had Don Long. They replaced him for a year with Turner Ward. They replaced Turner Ward with Alan Zinter, and now they'll have another guy. Turner Ward was a big launch angle proponent. You know, he wanted to hit a lot of home runs. We play in this little park. Let's take advantage of it. Let's swing from the heels and so on. Zinter came in and was more in line with Nick Krall's philosophy, which let's hit the ball where it's pitched. Let's go with line drives. And now I have no idea what the philosophy is. The new guy, they don't have him yet. So my concern is not necessarily that they're firing coaches. Those guys get fired all the time. My concern is that they find a plan, a way to do things, and stay with it, not only at the major league level, but as you said, what they've done with pitching with Johnson at every level. Start your guys from the day they walk off the bus in wherever I don't know, Daytona, I guess they still have a team, Dayton, whatever. But their first place as a Red, all the way to the major leagues, teach the same things, emphasize the same things. There should be a so-called Reds way in the same fashion that there is a Cardinals way, and we haven't seen that here. And now they're going with their fourth hitting coach in 5 years. Maybe we still won't see it, and that, to me, that's a concern.
And for the record, Turner Ward is now the assistant hitting coach for the St. Louis Cardinals. They
can hit the ball.
They can hit the ball.
They do.
Bengals this weekend, Sunday night, prime time. We talked a little while ago about how those prime time games and postseason games used to be a nightmare for this franchise. That's starting to turn. This game against Baltimore, now look, I know it's only the fifth game of the season. Both teams come in at 2-2. But it has the feel of a big-time game. You agree?
Sure. I mean, it's a big division game. There's a huge difference between 2-3 and 3-2, and especially in this division. I think what they need to find more than anything is a little consistency. I think the play calling has not been good. There's some stats that say that when they're in a shotgun. When Burrow is in the shotgun, they throw the ball 75% of the time. When he's behind center, they run it. Say whatever. It's a tell, an obvious tell. They're not mixing up their play calling very well, and they have no running game. I mean, no running game. And I don't know why that is. It's probably a combination of things. Again, I'm not smart enough to sit here and tell you exactly why. And for 4 games, or at least the past 3, the Bengals haven't been either. So I think what they need to do, and this is not a great Baltimore team by any stretch. It's certainly not a vintage Ravens defense. I mean, they tore up the Ravens twice last year when most of the defense, especially the secondary, was hurt. They got most of those guys back this year, and they're still getting up a ton of points. They blew two second-half leads. I think one was 17 and one was 21 in the first month. So they're not that great. It's upon the Bengals now to show that they can mix it up a little on offense, keep people guessing as to what they might be doing, keep teams from putting 8 in the box whenever Burrow lands sets up right behind center, and somehow get this running game, whether it means using Pirine and Evans more, whatever they want to do. They can't keep doing 2 yards in a cloud of Joe Mixon.
Mm-hmm. Chris Collinsworth was our guest. Chris Collinsworth was our guest here on Wednesday for an extended interview. One of the questions I asked him, and obviously he travels all around the league, sees all the top teams every single week for however long now, forever now. And I asked him just philosophically about head coaches who are play callers. And I went back just to double check this because I know that Andy Reid is asked about this a lot in Kansas City. Is Andy Reid calling the plays? Andy Reid swears up one side and down the other that Eric Bieniemy calls all the plays. Now, Andy Reid can weigh in, of course. I mean, it's his job on the line. But Collinsworth made the point that he does not think it is a good thing. There are too many other things a head coach needs to be thinking of. Too much happening. You got 40 seconds to get plays in. You're wondering, are we going to go? If this is a third down, okay, are we going to go on fourth? You're thinking about all of these things going on and that it's not conducive to offensive success with the head coach as the play caller.
Yeah, I agree with that. Although you look at how the Bengals did offensively last year, especially in the second half of the year, and it's tough to make that case here. However, I just think that generally speaking, your head coach is the CEO on game day. You have hired other people to do the job that he is doing. Manage the game, control the challenges, understand the situations. That's a lot on your plate without having to decide, well, what do we call on 3rd and 4? I've never been a big proponent of a head coach calling his own plays, especially a younger guy like Zach Taylor, who's kind of still learning the ropes and can get schooled by older coaches who have been around and who are not burdened by having to call their own plays.
Well, we'll see what happens on Sunday night. Again, that's on NBC, 8 o'clock kickoff. Doc, I know you'll be up late watching and writing all about it. You posted after the Thursday night game. So am I going to be able to check in on the morningline.substack.com and have your opinions and thoughts right after the game is over, or I got to wait till the next day?
Chances are good you'll have to wait till the next day. Try to get it up by between 10 and noon every day. I don't know that I'm going to be writing. I wrote last week until whatever it was, 2 o'clock in the morning, and I kind of wrecked the whole week, right? I mean, us older guys need some sleep every once in a while. So,
if you can,
probably noon the next day.
All right, good enough. Doc, thanks for the time, man. Have a great weekend.
You bet, Tom. Thank you.
You betcha. Great to have Paul Doherty. The morningline.substack.com. It's easy. You jump on there. You couple clicks here and there, and then it's sent to your email every single time it's posted. And his stuff has been great forever, and we're lucky to have him on at least twice a week to weigh in on what's going on, all sports Cincinnati, and other things, life issues. You have the Bearcats at home. We have our bash that starts for the first time. I got to be careful how I say that. You say there's a legal problem with that, right, Casey?
Yes, there is a legal problem with that. So
do you know what that is?
We just can't use their name. So bash is fine. The bash is fine. The red and black bash, whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
But the Chatterbox Bash.
And that's a good one. Chatterbox Bash. And that is tomorrow starting at 10 o'clock in the morning. It's going to be for, I believe we've decided, every UC home football game, right?
Well, this year, I think we're just doing this one for this year to test the water, see if you guys like it. And if you guys come and there's a big party, then we'll do it over and over.
So just to be clear, we will be there setting up at 10 o'clock. People will actually be allowed to be inside the gates and purchase beer and everything starting at 11.
Okay, so 11 o'clock.
So 11 to 10 is the official hours. 11 is when DJE train and the tailgate start. Noon is when the Mercy Health the bash. Mercy Health is the sponsor of it. That noon is when everything will, like our show, our programming for the 2 hours leading up to the game with Tony Pike, Brandon Sejo. That's when that will all start. There will be a watch party for the game. We'll have our Jumbotron back behind the stage.
Which is like having a TV in your living room.
I think it's a 17 by 21 foot video board.
Right.
And so you can watch the game there. And then after the game, come back. We'll still run from 6 to 10, and we'll have more football on there. Dana Beers and Glenny Balls from Barstool will both be there. Like I said, Leonard Stokes, James White, And
Leonard Stokes, the old basketball player?
Yeah.
Boy, he was a hell of a player.
Yeah.
He was really good.
Yeah. Potentially
so
some
more
more.
to chime in, right?
Potentially some more guys, too. We're still working on ironing out a few more guys to see if they can show up. But Leonard and James for sure, and Brandon and Tony. And
is Brian Kelly coming in for that?
I don't know about that.
Good homecoming?
Hey, they got a big game
How
this
about,
weekend.
yeah,
We're
I
going
was
to be
just
making
gonna
our
say.
picks later on. But, I mean, they lost that first game of the year. And they really, sort of let it get away from them against Florida State. They rallied late, and then there's still a lot going on. But now all of a sudden they've ripped off 4 wins in a row, and they play in the Bayou this weekend against surprising number 8, Tennessee.
I like Tennessee a lot. I really like Tennessee.
So that's your pick.
I haven't really dove
but if
into
you had
that
to
game.
make one, that would be your. What's the spread in that game?
Yeah. I haven't, honest to God, I have not even looked at that game.
We didn't even.
How does a guy who does a gambling show not able to tell me what the line is on LSU and Tennessee?
To be completely honest, Tom, to be very transparent with you, I have a family wedding tomorrow, and I will be out of commission all day long. So I did not dive as deep into tomorrow's spreads as deeply as I usually do. Tennessee is -3, over/under is 65.
And by the way, we didn't even – I don't know why we didn't put this as one of the games to pick. Should I go ahead and just add it in there real quick?
You want to add it in there?
I feel like we
I think we should.
Go
this
ahead.
is maybe one of the better games of the weekend.
Go ahead.
We'll go ahead and add it.
We'll add it. And that is is that a night game tomorrow night?
No, it's
that's a high noon game.
High noon.
Well, there's a couple great games. How about the lineup at noon tomorrow?
Yeah.
Right? You got Michigan, Indiana. I mean, for fans around here, that's fine. Tennessee at LSU at noon. Texas, Oklahoma used to be a great game. It'll be a great atmosphere. But Quinn Ewers is coming back for Texas, it looks like. And then, that's a good start at noon.
Tennessee and Kansas.
TCU, Kansas.
Yeah, that's what
Tennessee,
I was saying.
LSU.
TCU, Kansas. That's the game. That's the game. TCU. Kansas.
And then that leads
Go
off.
Horned Frogs. My main man, Sonny Dykes. I'll be down there to watch them play Kansas State in a few weeks, and we'll see where they stand then.
Yeah.
Because they've got Kansas, then they have Oklahoma State at home.
That's a tough game.
Who's undefeated.
Yep. Number 7 right now.
But TCU is the number 2 ranked offense in the country. Incidentally, Kansas is the 10th ranked offense in the country. So that game tomorrow in Lawrence could be a big-time shootout and a lot of fun to watch. All right, when we come back, we're going to talk more about UC and the Bengals with Dan Horde, the outstanding radio play-by-play voice for both the Bearcats and the Bengals. That's right around the corner on Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers.
At United Dairy Farmers, we've perfected freshness in our family bakery, where we use only the finest ingredients, like thick, high-quality glazes on our signature donuts, before delivering them fresh from bakery to store every day. UDF, made for you.
If your AC or furnace is struggling, turn to the experts at Bartell's Heating and Cooling. Their certified technicians get the job done right the first time, and if you need a new unit, Bartell's will give you upfront pricing with no hidden fees. Plus, ask about Bartell's 0% interest financing for 60 months. Learn more at bartellsheatingandcooling.com. Bartell's Heating and Cooling, for a comfortable way of life. Eli's Sports Bar and Grill, proudly sponsoring high school football with 3 locations in Mason, Liberty Township, and Ross, Ohio. Our 10-foot screens guarantee a great view from every seat in the house. Eli's Sports Bar and Grill, the best place in Cincinnati for sports, food, and fun.
Where can you turn when you're in pain? Turn where more high school, college, and pro athletes turn. Where your neighbors and weekend warriors turn. Turn to Beacon Orthopedics and Sports Medicine and get superior care on your schedule. That's the Beacon difference.
Check out our fresh arrivals at Jake Swinney Used Cars. Over 250 used vehicles weekly. All makes, all models. From economy to luxury, Jake Swinney, the original used car superstore.
time is now. Football season is back here in the Queen City, and Week 1, St. X versus Lakota West. DJ E-Train here with Chatterbox. It's about to go down. It's our kickoff of our official tour. Every Friday night you'll see us. Let's go.
It's on 3, 1, 2, 3. Let's go.
Man, I'm telling you, this game is going to come down to the first guy that says I've had enough. That's all it's going to say. One guy to say, you know what, I've had enough.
First game, bro.
My first one. I mean, I couldn't have asked for a better first one because Dakota West struggling a lot throughout the first half and beginning of second half, and then
big time.
It's a party. It's a party. It's a party.
I know one thing. Ain't nobody does this better than us. Facts.
Yeah, this atmosphere was insane. Show was on point. Everybody had a great time for the first one, too. Bringing people together. Big shout out to everybody tonight that worked hard from Chatterbox and everywhere else to put on a great show.
This dude's legit.
And he's sweating, so you know he's legit.
All right, we're back on Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. We're grateful to be joined by the radio voice of both the University of Cincinnati Bearcats and the Cincinnati Bengals, Mr. Dan Hoard, setting up shop from home. Gets to stay at home tonight, tomorrow, get to Baltimore. Little breathing room with that 8:20 game on Sunday night. So, Danny, hopefully no stress this weekend for you.
I wish that were the case, Tom, but once again, no good flights leaving Saturday night out of Cincinnati for either Baltimore or Washington. Thankfully, with the Sunday night game, I've got plenty of time to get there on Sunday. I am taking a 5:25 a.m. direct flight Sunday morning to Baltimore. So I will get to Baltimore, crash for a little while, and be ready to go.
Is that on Southwest Airlines, that flight?
It is.
Yeah, you know, I used to I've taken those flights to Baltimore a lot with our son traveling there frequently to play lacrosse. And I always found it was great. Now, for a night game, it's not. But, you know, you could go into Baltimore whenever you go in. But there's a Sunday night direct flight that comes back here at like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, which is always a nice option to have. But that's neither here nor there because I don't know how many people outside of this weekend from Cincinnati are going to Baltimore. Let's start with the UC Bearcats. They've won their last 4, scoring over 30 a game. Ben Bryant starting to come together. The run game, the combination they've got going on there, the way they've been running the football here lately anyway with Charles McClellan and Corey Kiner. You got to feel good about the way the offense is moving, and the defense has been solid pretty much all year long.
The defense has been great. I think the thing that's looking up is the running game, Tom, because 2 games ago, Cincinnati had 40 rushing yards on 30 carries. That's not going to cut it. Last week, they had more than 220 rushing yards. Now, if you look at the stats, I think it was 180-something because sacks count against rushing yards in college football. But in terms of the actual running game, it was over 220. Corey Kiner had his first 100-yard game as a Bearcat. He had a 52-yard run. McClellan had a 60-yard run. If they get that out of the running game, knowing how well Ben Bryant can throw the ball, they're going to be a handful for anybody they play.
And look, Danny, you've talked about it in the past, that Luke Fickell, generally speaking, has liked to have one kind of primary back. They had Ford the last couple of years, who was an outstanding player. But look no further than up the road in Columbus, right? I mean, you got Travion Henderson, who's been nicked up this year. He was a preseason first-team All-American. The kid from Winton Woods, Mayan Williams, steps in there, and now he looks like the best back in the country. There's nothing wrong with having 2 guys and not necessarily having to settle, for lack of a better term, on one guy, right?
Right. I do think there are situations in games where Luke Fickell will always prefer having a guy that he can count on to get the tough yard, and I think Corey Kiner is emerging as that guy. But that doesn't mean that Charles McClellan is going to go away or that we won't see more of Ryan Montgomery now that he's back from his bruised ribs, or even Miles Montgomery, who was the second guy in the season opener against Arkansas. They've all got talent. I think they're all going to get touches, but I do think in his heart, Luke Fickell wants to have the guy that he trusts the most when the game is on the line, and he needs to get a tough yard. And I still think that's going to ultimately be Corey Kiner.
Okay. I want to talk about South Florida a little bit. They're the opponent. It's homecoming weekend. Now, they've struggled a little bit over the last couple of weeks. But for those that maybe don't follow, they came very close to knocking off at the time a ranked Florida Gators team. I mean, they were like a 24-point underdog, and they get beat by 3. Their schedule has been lights out. I mean, you got to give it up to them for that. Out of conference, right? I mean, they've played Florida. They've played BYU, who's ranked in the top 25. I just wonder if those games didn't beat them up a little bit. What do you think?
Not sure about that in terms of injuries. They've got a few injuries. It doesn't seem like it's a roster that's racked with injuries or anything like that. But I do think that the Florida game was a very impressive performance. They lost by 3 points in the Swamp. I don't care how good Florida is in any given year. That's impressive. And the thing to remember about USF is that their quarterback, Gary Bohannon, was the starting quarterback for Baylor last year. Baylor won the Big 12. Baylor beat Ole Miss in the Orange Bowl. This guy was the quarterback, but he didn't transfer right away. He went through spring ball at Baylor. The head coach told him that he was going to lose the starting job because they just have another really talented quarterbacks. So at the end of spring ball, he transfers to USF. He gets, a month or so in fall camp to get accustomed to the offenses and to his teammates. So it's going to take a little bit for that guy to play the way he's capable of playing. But now that we've reached game 6, I think Gary Bohannon is legit. USF always has speedy weapons. They've got a great running back in Brian Battie. So even though the record is 1-4, I am not chalking this up as an easy game by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, the thing about Bohannon, we saw it last year, as you pointed out, with Baylor. I mean, this guy can throw it. He can also run it. And so, there's always that danger when you have a quarterback, an opposing quarterback who can do those kinds of things. But, Danny, you brought it up earlier. This team lost so much, this team being UC, lost so much on defense last year. Guys drafted in the NFL and starting in the NFL and first-round picks in the NFL and, all over the place. And you and I talked before the Arkansas game about replacing those players. Clearly, they've done a great job recruiting on both sides of the ball. But are you surprised at how well they are playing on defense this quickly with so many new faces?
Yes, I'm surprised by how much havoc they have been able to wreak so far this year. They're number 1 in the nation in sacks. They're number 1 in the nation in tackles for loss. I didn't see that. In fact, my biggest question going into the season was going to be about the pass rush because they lost Myjai Sanders. They lost Curtis Brooks. but the pass rush has been even better despite losing 6 draft picks off that defense, plus Joel DeBlanco, who is an NFL caliber player. So the coaching staff has done a phenomenal job. I think we've talked about Ivan Pace and the impact that he's made every week that we've done one of these hits. He's been phenomenal, but it hasn't just been him. Last week, in having 11 sacks at Tulsa, 10 different guys had at least a half a sack. So that's amazing stuff.
Let's shift gears to the Bengals. 2-2, Ravens 2-2. They outscored Baltimore last year in the 2 meetings, 82-38, I think it was. One game Lamar Jackson played, one game Lamar Jackson did not play. I think all of us agree across the board those numbers are great, but that Baltimore may have been the most injured team in the NFL last year, both on offense and defense. What are your initial thumbnail, sketch of where both teams are coming into this game?
Can Cincinnati do the job against Lamar that they did the one time that they played him last year? He did not play, as you noted, in the second game. That was at Paycor Stadium. But the first time around at M&T Bank Stadium, they shut him down. And he was removed at the beginning of the fourth quarter in that game, which I never thought we would see in a game between the Bengals and the Ravens, unless the Ravens were way ahead. So it was a refreshing change after he had gone 5-0 in his first 5 starts against the Bengals to see them dominate that meeting. So I think Lou Anarumo came up with a good formula. He has to tweak it. You can't do the same thing twice in a row. The Ravens are obviously going to make changes as well. But can they have a similar level of success against Lamar as they did in that game in Baltimore last year? If so, I think the Bengals win the game.
Much is made, and Dan, you and I have talked about this, speaking of Lou Anarumo, and he's been frequently asked, after Hill was so impressive at safety during the preseason, he played great. He might have been their best defensive player for the preseason. How much stock you put in that? Look, everybody's different in that regard. But he was a rookie. He's put on the field in the preseason. He looks great. He's very fast. He's very athletic. Britt comes back now as another member of the secondary. Looks like he is healthy. Sometimes coaches have to make personnel changes based on the personnel on the other side of the ball. And so what I'm getting at here is, do you suspect at all we see either of those guys on the field in certain situations this week that have not been on the field for one reason or another in the weeks leading up to Sunday night?
Dax Hill, yes. Cam Taylor-Britt, no. So Cam Taylor-Britt has been activated to practice. He's not on the active roster yet. You have 21 days when a guy comes off IR to activate him to the 53-man roster. That hasn't happened yet. I don't think it's going to happen for Sunday's game, but we'll see. But I do think Dax Hill gets more opportunities this week. The Bengals are going to try a variety of approaches to limit Lamar, and one thing that they did last year in that win was use 3 safeties. So I do think that they're going to have some 3 safety looks, and I think Dax Hill probably gets more snaps than he's been getting so far this year. Will it be a ton? No. They're not going to take Jesse Bates out to put Dax Hill in as long as Jesse is healthy, or Von Bell. But I do think that Dax probably gets more opportunities this week than he's had so far, and it adds an interesting twist to the game because Justice Hill, the Ravens running back, is his older brother. Mm-hmm. So Dax Hill might be in the role of trying to tackle his older bro in the game on Sunday night, which would be kind of cool.
That's good stuff. I mean, you can't beat that if you're in their family or friends. It doesn't get any better than that. I know it's happened before. It seems like it got a lot more pub this time because of the struggles in the run game where Joe Mixon on his own decides to gather the offensive line and the offensive staff to look at film, to talk about what's not working in the run game. As it pertains to this particular meeting, what are your thoughts? What have you heard about how that went? And do you suspect it's going to change anything?
I do. I don't know if it'll be overnight, but I do think Joe Mixon, he's as frustrated as anybody. Of the top 50 rushers in the NFL, he's dead last in yards per carry at 2.7. He averages 4.1 per yards per carry in his career. So there's been a big drop off there. He wants to fix it, and I don't see any negative in him calling for a meeting with all of his offensive linemen and tight ends and saying, hey, let's watch the tape together. You tell me what you see. I'll tell you what I'm seeing. Let's figure out how we can tweak this and get better. And I think the thing that gives Joe a lot of confidence is his third NFL season and Zach Taylor's first year as the Bengals head coach, when the running game was atrocious, even worse than it's been so far this year in the first 8 games of that season. On the flight to London, they famously scrapped what they had been doing, tried to change their approach to the running game. They went to a different style of running game. And in the second half of the season, he ran for more than 800 yards. So we've seen this movie before. I think that's why Joe Mixon isn't panicked. But they have to get it fixed, because for the Bengals to start putting 30 points on the board, which they haven't done now in 9 games, they've not had a 30-point performance in their last 9 games. They've got to get some balance. They can't just drop back, expose Joe Burrow to a bunch of hits, and expect that they're going to be the kind of offense that we all know they can be.
Yeah. All right, Dan, we have all kinds of folks that are online on YouTube and streaming our show, and every one of them scream every week at me asking you to make predictions on games. Now, some people are comfortable making predictions. Others, I didn't do it because, hell, what do I know? But are you in the prediction business? And if so, do you have any predictions for the 2 games you will be on the mic for this weekend?
Well, keep in mind that I'm employed by these teams.
That's why I asked.
Yeah. In UC's case, I'm actually a technically employee of iHeartMedia. In the Bengals case, they do sign my check. So it'd be awfully uncomfortable for me to pick against those teams.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I can genuinely tell you that I think UC will win against USF, particularly at home where they're looking for their 30th consecutive win. And I feel good about the Bengals this week. The fact that they went to Baltimore and were so dominant last year, I think really helps them going into the game on Sunday night. It's a tough place to play. I think the game atmosphere there is as good as any in the NFL. It's going to be rocking. The music is great. They do a great game day presentation, going back to Ray Lewis and his dance back in the day. But I feel good about the way they're trending. And I'll say this, how about Joe Burrow in primetime games? During the Andy Dalton era, we all bemoan the fact that he never seemed to rise to the occasion when the spotlight was brightest. And the numbers bear it out. I did the research yesterday. Andy played in 28 playoff or primetime games has played in 28 playoff or primetime games in his NFL career. His teams are 6-22. In the playoffs with the Bengals, he threw 1 touchdown pass and 6 interceptions. The numbers bear it out. He just did not play well in those games. So far, Joe Burrow is 5-2 in primetime and playoff games, 12 touchdown passes, 2 interceptions, a passer rating of 102.3. I like Joe's ability to rise to the occasion. I think he does it on Sunday night again.
I'm with you. All right, Danny. I was thinking driving in today before I let you go. If you're fortunate enough to broadcast for a college team, in your case with UC, pro team, doesn't matter the sport. Some of the things that you maybe as you're driving down the road you reflect on sometimes, and I was thinking about you today about how things have changed for both of the teams that you broadcast for. Now, the Bengals had a nice run of it there, for a while under Marvin, making the playoffs. Yes, failures in the playoffs, as you just pointed out. Nonetheless, good teams, exciting teams, so on and so forth. But for UC, the consecutive winning streak in the conference, the consecutive winning streak at home, every game now is a sellout. I mean, before Luke Fickell and when Tommy Tuberville was still hanging around, the difference between then and now in a not so long period of time is amazing, isn't it?
It is, but we don't have to go back that far to remember similar achievements under Brian Kelly. So the program dipped, right. No question about it, but we saw that turnaround really start with Mark D'Antonio and Brian Kelly and going to the Orange Bowl and the Sugar Bowl in back-to-back years. I'll never forget being at the Orange Bowl, the 2008 season. Did you do that game, Thom?
I did, yeah.
Okay. So I'll never forget being in the press box just getting ready to sign on the air for the 2008 Orange Bowl. And just looking at Jim Kelly, my longtime broadcast partner who has been involved with UC Athletics forever, and he was on the verge of tears because neither of us could believe that as the radio voices of the University of Cincinnati football team, we were about to do an Orange Bowl. And then a year later, it was the Sugar Bowl. And now in the last 2 years, the Peach Bowl and the Cotton Bowl. So there was a point not that long ago that all of this stuff seemed impossible. But these great coaches and the players that they've have made it very possible. And they're going to take it to the next level going forward in the Big 12. So it is unbelievable.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. Danny, enjoy the weekend. I know you're grateful for every second for the chance to do these games. And I know you'll knock it out of the ballpark. Good luck, young man, over the weekend. Be careful.
Thanks, buddy. I am grateful. Greatest gig in the world. I'm very appreciative to have these opportunities. So thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. We thank Dan Hoare. That was a last-second ask for Dan. He comes on with us every week, and that was my fault. I didn't want to text him last night too late. You know, you never know how late you can send people messages, that kind of thing. And mighty kind of him to come on in such short notice. Gentlemen, we are getting close to that magical time.
That magical time of the week.
My favorite time of the week, Tom.
Magical indeed. And that would be our picks of the week. So for those of you that are just tuning into the program for the first time, literally hundreds by the day checking in, hundreds more checking in by the day, and downloading a podcast.
Podcast numbers through the roof.
Through the roof.
Love it.
And we thank all of you. We really do. I sincerely mean that. And we would ask you to share your thoughts with us when we're streaming, or share the show with your friends or your family members. Hey, check it out. You know, maybe they like it, maybe they don't. But we're doing our best. But one thing we do every week is we generally pick about 5-6 college games, and you know, there's a group there that's always involved their game every single week. So we always have on the college side UC, Ohio State, Kentucky, and The Ohio University. Then we sprinkle around, as Paul likes to say. We'll sprinkle around after that. Pros, we do the AFC North every week, everybody in it. So, you know, we've got Bengals v. Ravens, Steelers at Buffalo, Brownies at home to the Chargers. And then we find, again, sprinkle around, top 2 or 3 other games that are out there that many of you might want to watch or have interest in. It's safe to say that yours truly a little slow out of the gate, but it's like in the distance when you're on the prairie and you're somewhere out in Montana, and all of a sudden you hear this rumbling starting, and you're wondering what will you're, or say, you know, better yet you're in Colorado because that's a louder rumble, and all of a sudden you're wondering what's going on, and you turn around and you see this dust and this dirt up in the air in the distance, and here come these buffaloes in mass, storming, straight ahead, power, speed. That's where I am in this picking. Started slow, but I'm like that herd of buffalo that you can hear and you can see and you can sense and you can feel down the road coming to get you. And I'm coming to get Casey and Brandon. We're doing our picks coming up next.
At United Dairy Farmers, we've perfected freshness in our family bakery, where we use only the finest ingredients, like thick, high-quality glazes on our signature donuts, before delivering them fresh from bakery to store every day. UDF, made for you.
If your AC or furnace is struggling, turn to the experts at Bartell's Heating and Cooling. Their certified technicians get the job done right the first time, and if you need a new unit, Bartell's will give you upfront pricing with no hidden fees. Plus, ask about Bartell's 0% interest financing for 60 months. Learn more at bartellsheatingandcooling.com. Bartell's Heating and Cooling, for a comfortable way of life. Eli's Sports Bar and Grill, proudly sponsoring high school football with 3 locations in Mason, Liberty Township, and Ross, Ohio. Our 10-foot screens guarantee a great view from every seat in the house. Eli's Sports Bar and Grill, the best place in Cincinnati for sports, food, and fun.
turn when you're in pain. Turn where more high school, college, and pro athletes turn. Where your neighbors and weekend warriors turn. Turn to Beacon Orthopedics and Sports Medicine and get superior care on your schedule. That's the Beacon difference.
Check out our fresh arrivals at Jake Sweeney Used Cars. Over 250 used vehicles weekly. All makes, all models. From economy to luxury, Jake Sweeney, the original used car superstore.
I know one thing. Ain't nobody does this better than us. Facts.
All right, it's that time. You're watching Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. So Brandon is not in studio today. He is at a very important function. We talked about the launching of the Joe Burrow Foundation a couple of days ago. What's that mean?
Let's keep details private here.
Private? I mean, you're all dressed up and you're at some function. People are wondering what the hell's going on. You're normally sitting back here in a T-shirt and a Red Bull or whatever it is you're drinking over there.
It doesn't look like no
or
ham
a
and
Coors
egg.
Light. I mean, what am I supposed to say?
I'm at a coffee shop for some meetings. Let's just go with that.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Well, good luck on it. Unlike with your picks this coming week, I'm not wishing you luck there. Are you ready to go, Mr. Seho?
I'm so ready. People at this coffee shop probably have no idea what I'm talking about, but that's fine.
That's okay. Casey, are you ready?
I am as ready as I'll ever be.
And Paul, are you going to be basically critiquing our picks as we move along? Would you be kind enough to do so, since you have your own gambling show here on Chatterbox Sports? Not too picky.
I would love to. Nothing would make me happier. Let's rock and roll, fellas.
All right, let's rock and roll.
All
We
right.
tee it up on the college front. Games tomorrow. We just heard from Dan Horde about the UC Bearcats, winners of 4 in a row, now ranked number 24 in the country. They should be higher than that when you look at the teams ahead of them. But South Florida comes in 1-4. We talked about their out-of-conference schedule. They played against Florida, nearly pulled off the upset. They played against BYU. So, look, coming to Cincinnati is not going to be some huge, overwhelming deal at sold-out Nippert Stadium tomorrow afternoon at 2:30 kick. I've changed my mind.
Okay.
After doing a little more research, I have shifted gears to the South Florida Bulls at 27.5. That's too big of a number for me. Way too big of a number. I would not be surprised if UC covered, but I'm, for the first time all year long, not betting on them covering. Casey?
Yeah, I am actually picking USF as well. I just think that the spread is too much, and it was really close last year, 45-28. I mean, they put up some points on them, but Florida's just been able to stick in there with some of those teams this year. So I'm picking USF.
We're getting the double thumbs down naturally for the UC Bearcat alum Brandon Seho.
I almost picked South Florida here, but I couldn't do it. The Bearcat Bash is happening tomorrow on Short Vine. The crowd's going to be crazy because of Chatterbox Sports. Me and Tony Pike are hosting it. A bunch of great guests are coming in, some Bearcat legends. UC is going to crush the Bulls by 27.5 and then some.
We've been talking a lot about the Bash. I'm told, Brandon, and by the way, all legal pursuers in this whole thing about the name can contact Brandon Seho. No. That was not Casey. That was not Paul. That was not me. It's the Bash that starts tomorrow on Short Vine. You and Tony Pike and company will be there.
Okay. Some Coors Lights.
Yes, indeed. And now we move on to the Ohio State University Buckeyes. They are favored at East Lansing, Michigan. Think back to 1 year ago, and my, how times have changed. I was in Columbus last year when Michigan State came in ranked 4th or 5th in the country, undefeated. Ohio State was undefeated, and Ohio State wins it. I mean, it was just stupid, 52-7 or something. It was just unbelievable what a rout it was. And my, oh my, how fortunes have changed for Michigan State. They give Mel Tucker this enormous contract, which for the life of me, I don't get it. I think he did a great job last year. They won their bowl game. They won 11 games. But you don't have to give a guy that kind of contract in just his third season and his first good year. But they did. And they've lost 3 in a row. They're not playing well. Spread's 27. Ohio State's rolling. I think this is Buckeyes in a landslide. They cover the 27 easy.
Yeah, and I would have to agree with you as well, Tom. That Michigan State is struggling quite a bit. They've lost 3 in a row, and I'm just looking here. I mean, they lost to Minnesota 34-7.
Yeah, Minnesota's good though.
Yeah, and so is OSU. So that just makes the minus 27 that much more reasonable to me.
Yeah.
So.
And you're rowing on that same boat?
Rowing the boat for Minnesota, who beat Michigan State. Ohio State's going to win by 40.
Okay.
Yeah, tough thing about this one is the total's at 65. And you look back at last year's game, it was 56-7. That doesn't even get you there at 63. It was 49-0 at halftime.
I know. They called off the dogs. I was there. They could have scored 80 in that game.
All right, let's rock and roll. SC and Kentucky.
Okay. I think Kentucky should be undefeated. I think anybody who watched that game against Ole Miss last weekend would come away and say that Kentucky was the better team. But the Wildcats did not win the game. They fumbled twice inside the red zone late in the fourth quarter, and they lose for the first time this year. 6.5. I'm a little surprised that line is not a little higher. So the wise guys know something. But I'm taking UK in Lexington.
Well, the weird thing about this one is that the game opened at 11.5, and it's come all the way down underneath the touchdown, which makes me a little nervous, especially with yesterday. The money in this game yesterday was severely lopsided along with the bets in this game. So right now, 71% of the money is on South Carolina at 6.5, but only 35% of the bets are on South Carolina.
So what's that mean?
So that means if you think how much money compared to fewer bets, that means the big money is on South Carolina in this game. And, I mean, I like UK under a touchdown, but I'm not making picks here. So, Tom, who do you have?
I got Kentucky.
All right, Casey.
Yeah, I also have Kentucky on this one. I think they were clearly the better team last week against Ole Miss. And I did pick them to cover the spread, I'm pretty sure. So I've been on UK for a while now. They have not let me down. So 6.5, I like that. It's not this magic number, that is the magic number. 6.5. So I like UK in this one.
Brandon,
I think the Gamecock's going to keep it tight, going to keep it close. UK might still win, but they will not cover.
Okay.
Wow.
Go Gamecocks.
Okay.
To cover.
All right. I got you. Fair enough. Mississippi State comes to UK next weekend. That's another good game. All right, The Ohio University. It's homecoming. I would have been there tomorrow morning. But our daughter's on fall break from college. So I'm right here on the home front, which I'd rather, of course, be. So Bobcats favored by 11 over Akron. This is a no-brainer. The Ohio University covers at 11. Casey?
Yeah. Every time I pick Ohio, I end up regretting it later. But you know what? I'm picking them again this week. Minus 11. Why not? Let's try it one more time.
All right.
Tom, I want to know what it would take for you to not bet on OU. Is there anything?
I've already said it'll never happen.
Okay. All right. No, I respect that. I'm just wondering if there is anything, if we're working with a fourth-string quarterback and like.
Nope, never going to do it. And that's why I say really at the end of the day, Casey and Brandon, one of the reasons they are slightly ahead of me in the overall numbers is because on a pretty regular basis, I'm the only one picking Ohio University. And look, they've not played well to start this season. They play a great out-of-conference schedule, and it's not been a great year, although, their record's 2-3. Could be worse. So, Brandon, who are you picking in this one?
Say it with me, Tom. OU, oh yeah.
OU, oh yeah, indeed. Homecoming weekend in A-Town.
That's what they say there, right?
That is going to be, if they can even get that far in the alphabet. And I went there,
Go
so
Cats.
I can say that. Okay. Couple of other games outside of our region. I just think the whole Nick Saban, Jimbo Fisher thing has some interesting dynamics to it for sure, even though they used to work together. Jimbo Fisher coached under Nick Saban. You throw in the quarterback thing now, and Paul, as you pointed out, the Texas A&M starting quarterback, Max Johnson, it looks like he's not going to play with a hand injury. Now, when they went into camp, they had 2 or 3 guys who were vying for the starting job, so I know they probably feel as though the other guys are capable. The wild card in this whole thing, and it's a game-time decision, is Bryce Young, the reigning Heisman Trophy winner for Alabama, who was injured his shoulder in the game last week. It's 24. It's in Alabama. Roll Tide, roll.
So I'm gonna put my friend Paul here on the spot. I am gonna change my pick.
He sees my pick and changes it. He does this every week, at least once, Tom. At least once.
Never. And it's mainly just because of the whole Bryce Young thing being out, and I just don't know. Like, when you don't know, you don't know, and this might come back to bite me in the butt. Alabama's clearly the better team, but I got to go and with what my gut's telling me, and right now Texas A&M makes sense. So
here's the thing, though. Jalen Milroe didn't look terrible last week. He was serviceable. Did you see that run he had for a touchdown? Yeah, the backup for Alabama.
Well, I mean it's Alabama.
It's Alabama. They just turn him out.
Come on, it's
Alabama. Yeah.
I mean,
but I'm just saying it wasn't
stiff in there.
Yeah, it wasn't like they threw him in. I mean, I don't want to say it's like a Cardale Jones situation where you throw in and he wins the national championship, but I mean, he looked good in very limited snaps that we saw him. All right, go ahead, Brandon.
Does that mean you're going with A&M?
Going with the Aggies.
I cannot believe you guys are going with A&M.
24 is a lot. I know it's Alabama. The Bryce Young trying to figure out if he's going to play or not. I think he plays. Still, the Jimbo Fisher drama with the NIL money and all that, him and Saban going back and forth. The game is in Tuscaloosa. I don't know if you've been there, Tom. It's a good environment. It's not great. Ohio State and LSU are louder. I think A&M is going to at least cover. They might lose by 23, but at least they'll lose by 23.
This line hasn't really moved much at all. It opened at 23.5. It's now up to like 24, so it's only moved about a half a point. 80% of the public, though, of the money is on Alabama.
Look, here's the thing. I liken this, and look, it's the greatest college coach of all time, greatest pro coach of all time in this analogy. I am not a gambler, but in situations like this, and when our Fox crew doing NFL games, we'd all pick games and have a running thing the whole year long just to have some fun with the spread. There are two teams outside of Ohio University, which you've documented, but there are two teams that I will never, under any circumstances, bet against. And that is Nick Saban as head coach of Alabama and when Tom Brady was playing for Bill Belichick in New England. Will not do it. I cannot believe you two stiffs are picking against Alabama this weekend.
Just remember
at home.
Who's leading the standings, not you.
That's right now. It's a temporary thing.
This could be a big week for you, Tom.
It could.
This has
week.
potential to be
I know
a big
already.
week.
I told you about, and we had who was it that liked my, sort of description?
Oh yeah, I think that was Mars on YouTube.
Mars,
Mars.
You
Mars
heard
loved
it, Brandon, but like the buffalo in the plains. Did you hear all this?
Oh yeah. I logged on to hear your rant, whatever the hell that was.
That was a big league rant.
I like
big
it.
leaguer.
All right.
There's no doubt. Okay,
I'm probably
who's
so
next?
loud right now in this place.
Okay, this is a game we added. We weren't going to do this, but because it does have some local flavor to it, Tennessee, they've got a lot of alums sprinkled in and around greater Cincinnati. Undefeated, ranked 8th in the country. Brian Kelly lost their first game. We talked about it a little while ago. They won 4 in a row his first year at LSU. The spread is Tennessee -3. Did I ever pick this game?
You're going to pick it live.
I'm going to pick it live. I am I'm taking the Volunteers.
Good choice.
That's what I had down, assuming you would pick it. I like the pick, Tom.
Thank you.
Yep. And I also am going with Tennessee as well. The Volunteers, LSU really hasn't played anybody except for Mississippi State, as far as I can see.
Tell you what, LSU 4-1. They weren't thinking that down there this year. Brian Kelly, like him or hate him, guy's one of the top 5 coaches in college football, might be top 3. Brandon?
Go Tigers. That's not
I knew that was
Brian Kelly. That is, well, listen, I just think Tennessee, I'm still not all the way in on them.
Yeah.
They got a couple big wins this year, but we've seen Tennessee, what they've been the last 10 or 15 years. I don't think LSU's that good, but I've been to Death Valley. I covered them for 2 years. I think this is a game where LSU can squeak by with a win or at least lose on a field goal, which would be a push.
If this was a night game, I would go with LSU because you know the scene down there in the Bayou. Night games, but noon kickoff, no.
Hey, they'll be up drinking. I promise you that.
This is the game of the weekend, and I made the comment earlier. If somebody, Paul, you're doing a gambling show. If someone would have come to you in August, and they'd have said, "Hey, look, when we get around to October the 8th, 5 weeks, 6 weeks into the college football season." The biggest and best game is going to be TCU at Kansas. Now, TCU has had a lot of good football teams through the years under Gary Patterson. He was there for over 20 years. They fired him last year. They bring in Sonny Dykes from SMU. They got the number 2 offense in the country. And then there's Kansas. Kansas! Bill Self doesn't coach this team.
Jayhawk.
I mean... And TCU at Kansas, College Game Day on ESPN is going to Lawrence, Kansas for a football game tomorrow. Unbelievable. But TCU on the road is a 6.5-point favorite. I say go Horned Frogs. TCU in a rout in this game tomorrow. Thoughts? Casey?
I'm going with TCU as well. I've never been a big believer of Kansas's football team or program to begin with.
I don't think in your defense, Casey, I don't think anybody in America has been for the last 15 years.
Yeah, so that's really my only reason. I think TCU is a better program, but we'll see.
Here's my thing, Brandon, before you make your pick. Kansas this year, here's their schedule. Tennessee Tech, can't count that. West Virginia, all right, I'll give it to you. Not bad. Houston, Dana Holgorsen, that's not a – no.
They were supposed to win the American Conference, and they didn't.
Oh, no, but they're terrible. Duke, terrible. Iowa State, okay, it's a Big 12 win, but not a good team. I think this Kansas team is a little overvalued. It is at home, and I'm not taking anything away from what Kansas has done. They deserve to be ranked. I'm not in any way discrediting anything that they have done, but I think that the public is overvaluing the Kansas momentum a little bit. What scares me about the bets in this game is that everybody is on TCU.
Yeah.
The public, everybody is on TCU, as am I, as is Casey, as is Thom. Hey, Brandon, are you going to make it 3 in a row?
The old 3 in a row.
Yeah, these are tired when we all agree.
Get stuff done. Well, I tried to mix it up, and then Casey started mimicking my picks on some of them. So,
Yeah, it was funny in the commercial break before we started these picks. Casey's going on and on about how and Paul are saying that Brandon's stepping out of the box on some of these picks, and now once we actually get to them on the air, here Casey is changing in mid-sentence.
I mean, I changed it one time to the Aggies. I think that's the only one I changed.
I know, but there's always one. There's one a week. There's one a week.
No, you changed South Florida. You changed UC too. So that's 2 of our 6 games.
Okay, well,
I think Kansas deserves credit for being 5-0 and for surpass. Their preseason win total was at 2.5. I think that they deserve credit for getting to this point and even winning games in the first place for a Kansas program that hasn't won games in a decade and a half. But I think that they are getting a little too much pub right now. But if they win this game or at least cover in this game, if they keep it close, if they keep it under a touchdown, then you might start to see some legitimacy because TCU is legitimately
Well,
good.
the thing I find interesting about and look, every website, they have their own, sort of playoff predictors and playoff indicators and all that kind of thing. And then you have the rankings, the coaches poll, the AP poll. I found it so interesting this week that TCU, who has not been ranked by anybody anywhere all year long until they beat Oklahoma last week. Now I think they're number 17, something like that, 17, 15. But in this playoff predictor, and I don't know if it was ESPN or somewhere else, maybe The Athletic, they are all the way up to number 6. I mean, that's a shocker. When this season began, TCU was picked 7th in the Big 12, and Kansas was picked 10th. And here they are, both undefeated.
You talk about it being a homer show. Let's just remember, where does your daughter go to college at?
She goes to school at TCU.
Okay, just making sure.
But, I mean, I follow them now more. And, I mean, I followed them a little bit before because they were a program worth following. And then things fell apart. Legendary coach. They have a statue of the guy, and they fired him in the middle of the year.
All right, NFL.
Here we go. NFL, we start with the Chargers at 2-2. The Brownies at 2-2 along the lakefront. Be a little chill in the air on Sunday for the first time this year. Chargers at -2.5. And once again, it's like me just running into this cement wall here. I continue to roll the dice with the Brownies. I hit it so hard it made the facial hair grow. I'm going with the Brownies.
Well, I'm going with the Chargers, begrudgingly, because I just don't. Yeah, it is a big word.
It is big, too big for this show.
Too big. I went above my ham and egg or pay status there. I just think the Chargers have a better team than the Browns. The Browns are the Browns. And they, again, have a ton of people on the injured list right now, a bunch of questionables, and I just don't like that necessarily. And, I mean, 2.5, that's a good spot. I think the game will probably come down to a field goal. It was last year. It was like 45-48, if I'm not mistaken. It won't be like that, of course, but it's going to be close. Probably 20-23.
I hate saying this because, as you guys know, I had Joe Thomas. He's coming up as one of my first guests on the podcast. Browns legend. Love the guy. And he showed Cincinnati a lot of love, saying he feels like the Bengals fan base is comparable, so loyal for all those losing seasons, wants to see him win. But like you said, Casey, I think the Browns are always going to be the Browns. Chargers on this one.
Okay. We move on to, as we call them, not the men of steel, we call them the men of aluminum. They make a lot of aluminum in Pittsburgh.
They do.
That they do, Tom.
And they didn't used to make it down around the football complex, but they are now. Steelers -14 at Buffalo. I'm taking
That's a big number.
Buffalo.
Yeah, I think we all feel the same way about this game. They're going to be starting their rookie quarterback Pickett.
Yep.
Steelers are banged up, hurt, have a terrible offense. Is just too much in Buffalo's favor. I'm taking Buffalo.
Casey?
All Bills.
Brandon?
Oh, I'm Brandon. I know you're a big timer, so you can't remember our names, but this is Brandon here. Paul's in my seat, and Casey's
I
over there
appreciate you
producing.
guys introducing yourselves to me every time I come in here in Hamilton, Ohio in the morning. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I stop by UDF, pick up your coffee for you. I do your dry cleaning because you leave your shirts at the studio. I really am just your personal assistant. I'm lucky to be with you. I'm picking the Bills, by the way.
The Bills, okay. All right. All right, what's up next? Giants v. Packers. Giants, another team, Paul. I mean, nobody in a million years thinks after 4 weeks they're 3-1. It started with that gutsy call on a 4th down going for the win in week 1 at Tennessee. Their only loss coming to the Dallas Cowboys. 3-1, but they're at Lambeau Field. Why is this game only an 8-point spread? Because of the offensive woes by
London.
Green Bay?
It's across the pond.
This is a London game.
Oh, it is. I'm
9:30
sorry.
in the
Thank
morning.
you. I did not know that. All right, it's in London.
Get your
Is that why?
I mean, it's either that or they just think that the game is going to be low scoring, in my opinion.
Well, look, I said it earlier. Aaron Rodgers came out point blank and it just said, this is not sustainable. We're 3-1. I got to be better. This quoting him. This offense has to be better because the defense is playing their tails off, and we are just not getting it done. I'm still going with a Pack.
Yeah, and I'm not going to bet against Aaron Rodgers in this game. I'm going with the Pack too. Don't trust the Giants. The only good player they got is Saquon. And I think the Packers start to figure it out on offense. They just got to if they want to be better. So
I don't know. I really don't know. Brandon?
I really wanted to pick the Giants here. I can't do it. We saw what the Packers were doing. Like Aaron Rodgers said, can't win sustainably with that type of offensive performance. But I think that the line's closer than we think because it's in London. Tom, I don't know if you've done games over there.
I have.
But no, yeah, it's the way those games work. I think NFL players really don't like it. I was there for the Bengals-Rams game last time. They fly over a day and a half before. Your your sleep schedule's all messed up. I think it's going to be tight because of that, but I think in the end, Green Bay covers.
Check for me here, fellas, if you don't mind. I saw where the game in London last week was played
wild.
In a stadium other than Wembley. Now, I've been over there and done a number of games over there. Yeah. Where is that game this week?
It's at the Tottenham Hotspur
Stadium.
Stadium.
So it's going to be a little bit different ball game. That stadium is not nearly as big, I don't think, as Wembley. Wembley's, it's insane.
It's incredible.
How big it is. Yeah. And so it's a little bit different atmosphere in a quote-unquote soccer stadium. Although
football.
Decent size, but yes, football.
But it is an NFL ready. Have you seen how they have prepared this stadium? It's an NFL ready stadium.
Well, I mean, and there are a lot of people who want to see a team over there.
Yeah, that's I think the idea behind them playing these.
I mean, there's been a lot of talk about that, and I happen to be a part of a conference symposium, whatever you want to call it, on this very topic. Roger Gazelle was there and just talking about the challenges of having a team, which the NFL desperately wants, having a team in London. The scheduling challenges, as you can imagine, it's really interesting because they've studied all the different ways you could do it. Come here for 2 weeks, you play home for 2 weeks, on and on and on and on.
Do you think it's realistic? Do you think it ever happens?
You know what? I don't. It's not to say that I don't think that's not saying it won't happen. But I think at the end, look, you know what? I'm going to stop there because it's just like Thursday night. The players and the coaches, they bitch and moan about playing on a Thursday night after playing on a Sunday, right? But at the end of the day, when Amazon Prime walks in the door and they say, we're giving you billions of dollars, which that money is shared with the players say, we'll take it. When there's talk about getting players not wanting a 17th game in a schedule, well, again, money talks, the rest of it walks. So if they get a franchise in London, the rights fees alone would be billions of dollars, and the TV money generated now in England and in and around London, I think the players probably say it's fine. We'll do it. We'll travel over there, and the rest of it goes to the Wolves. All right, we're getting off pace. Where are we?
Two more.
Cowboys v Rams. To me, the Rams are at a tipping point right now in their season, even though it's only the 5th week. Their offensive line lost a lot from last year, including Andrew Whitworth. Matthew Stafford looked like he was back in Detroit last week. He's throwing picks. He's getting killed. He got sacked 7 times by the 49ers. I think the Cowboys cover this 5.5. Casey?
I agree with you, Tom. I think they cover. I actually think they win, honestly. That's my bold prediction.
That's a Paul term.
Yeah.
Sprinkle
that little sprinkle.
Money line.
Sprinkle it in there. Yeah, that defense is kind of crazy, and we kind of saw what happened when they faced a really good defense against the 49ers. So
this might be a regression to the mean for Cooper Rush, though.
Might be.
Yeah.
But they keep saying that every week he started.
Yeah. I know what you're saying. I think that this might be I think that this might be the regression to the mean week.
Okay.
Just the way the defense and having to handle everything, but Matt Stafford sure hasn't looked good.
Well, their offensive line looks terrible, just terrible. And we've seen here in Cincinnati when the quarterback's getting killed, you have a hard time winning games.
Yeah.
All right, Brandon. So, Casey, you're going with Dallas.
Yep. I think LA Rams. I'm taking them to cover. Let's do. I think this is the Dallas quarterback, Cooper Rush. This isn't going to be his game, and LA's got to bounce back.
Okay, you're right about that for LA because it does not look like a reigning Super Bowl championship team. Even their defense has not looked great.
Hear those Bengals growling, mean and angry.
Here they come.
Last time you clowns did this, they got their tails kicked.
Well, it's the immovable object, unstoppable force thing with your beard.
See, that's that Xavier University education.
Hey,
talking above the rest of this crowd.
I'm just saying.
All right, Bengalis are a 3-point dog in Baltimore. I am taking, without even blinking, I am taking Cincinnati to cover that.
I am also taking Cincinnati to cover. Everyone knows from the show that I have them winning. So.
Oh, I thought you had the Ravens winning.
No,
he said it's a walk in the park for the Bengals.
This whole time, I thought you've been telling me for 2 days.
Confirm that. Casey has said all week it's a walk in the park.
I've not said
He
that,
thinks
though.
the Bengals are going to win by 45
I'm messing around,
points.
Casey.
I know he
Sunday
does.
Night Football. I'm taking the Bengals, too. Like I said, that Madden Wednesdays I do, where it's been pretty spot on. Bengals go down early in the first half. Burrow struggles a little bit like he has in these first few games. Comes back. They win by 7. That would obviously cover the spread here. I'm picking the Bengalis to win.
And, Paul, what are your thoughts?
I'm already
on this game. Are you sprinkling money line action on the Bengalis or no?
I'm already locked in on my weekend action. Like I said, I got a wedding this weekend, so I don't have any bets in for Saturday. But Sunday, I'm already in. Bengals, I'm taking the money line. I'm taking them straight up.
Straight up.
Straight up. Vegas can keep the points on this one. I do think that this is –
Where's the money going on this game?
Yeah, good question. I was just actually looking at that. The Ravens right now are getting 82% of the money.
You have got to be
82% and 60% of the bets. So everything right now is on the Ravens. This game opened at 3.5. It's pretty much stayed at 3.5. It's at 3 right now, which I like even better. If you look at the kickers in this game, Justin Tucker, Evan McPherson, if it comes down to a field goal and you have the Bengals, you're pushing on that at 3. I love the Bengals in this spot. The only thing you don't like is that it's on the road. Baltimore plays very well at home in prime time. But I'm already in on the Bengals.
Tell you the one thing you just mentioned, and I failed to ask Dan Hort about this. Evan McPherson did not practice a couple of days this week. He's got a groin injury. Now, they say after being named the AFC Special Teams Player of the Week last week. I don't know how severe it is. They're saying he's going to kick and he's going to play, so, that's great. But that might be something to file away because, as you point out, these are 2 of the top 3-4 kickers in the NFL. I still believe the kid in Pittsburgh is still right there with anybody. But that could be a huge factor in this game. All right, fellas. Brandon, have a great rest of your day. Good luck with the Bash tomorrow. Are you allowed to host and drink beer at the same time?
Yes, I've already went over that with our.
That's in your contract?
Our boss. Yeah. I wrote that in the contract. Unlimited, well, not unlimited. A reasonable amount of Coors Lights may be had while hosting tailgate events. We did it with the Bengals. I'll be doing it with the Bash near UC. We're going to have a good time. It's going to be fun. And I will help clean up afterwards. Might be, a little off balance, but we'll figure it out. I'm a team player.
Absolutely. Okay. Okay. So there you have it. Do we have a cherry on top presented by UDF this week or no?
We do. We have a cherry on top. It's kind of a inside joke amongst us at Chatterbox, but it has relevancy here today.
And you want to tee this up?
Yes. So this clip happened 5 years ago today, and in my personal opinion, Tom, is the absolute pinnacle of the broadcasting profession. I'll leave it at that.
Let's hear it.
Here we go.
This would be a big kick for him.
6 of 7 on the year is Paulie Fricano. Fricano is 6 of 8 now.
Off the crossbar. He just barely had enough, but he knocked it through, Ben. Gets him even. That's a big kick for Paulie Fricano. Eastern Michigan answers 3-3.
Do you need a let's restart that one more time. Let's just
Fricano's long as 46. He didn't go back.
I'm going to turn it down just for a little bit. Eastern Michigan going for this 50 and obviously wide right, but
he missed it by 10 yards.
Off the crossbar. He just barely had enough, but he knocked it through, Ben. Gets him even. That's a big kick for Paulie Fricano. Eastern Michigan answers 3-3.
Not Jay Feely's finest moment.
It's a little interesting. I wonder what he saw. Apparently it went off the crossbar.
I love how he sent it to break, too. Play-by-play guys just standing there befuddled. How do you handle that one, Tom, in the booth?
Look, I have made more than my fair share of mistakes. I try to avoid critiquing other announcers at all costs. I really don't. I've never done it. I never will. But, boy, that one is I don't even know what to say. We're out of time. We've gone over our allotted time frame. So, fellas, have a great weekend. Have a good time at the wedding.
Yes, thank you.
Great having you with us today, Paul.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Your show will be back on Monday.
Monday.
Casey, have a great weekend.
Thank you.
And we thank our producers, Casey McCollister, Paul Frischner. We thank Brandon Seho checking in. We thank Trace Fowler, our CEO and executive producer. We will see you on Monday. God bless. Have a great weekend.